Thanks, Ricky. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I was told once that I have the ideal voice to read bedtime stories, which I took as a compliment at the time, but then realised later on that may have been a backhanded compliment. So my primary aim today is to make sure you don't drift off to sleep. And my secondary aim is to talk about how Riverford uses Mapp to drive customer insights. And if I achieve one of those today, I'll be happy. Before jumping into it, I just want to take you through who I am and how I got here. So I'm Nick. I worked in London through most of my 20s in the data and marketing world. I since escaped the big smoke just before lockdown, fortunately. And I found a job at Riverford and I now look after the customer engagement team there. So who are Riverford? Well, put simply, we're a fresh food delivery company. We're committed to organic farming and we provide high quality ethical produce directly to our consumers. And by show of hands, before you saw the agenda today, how many of you had heard of Riverford? Oh, very good. How many of you have shopped at Riverford? Okay, that's where we need to improve things, that's fine. How many of you have been to Pizza Express? Yeah, okay, fine. All right. So what am I going to talk to you about today? So I'm just going to give a bit of context behind what we're going to sort of the juicy bits. So yeah, we've gone through a really turbulent period in the last 3 years, and we've since set out a 5-year plan. Here I get onto the sort of really interesting bit around measuring advocacy and driving insight and change, and that's enabled by Mapp. And then I'll do a quick summary at the end. So 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, I joined Riverford, I think, on the 9th of March 2020. I think you'll remember that month. A week later, I was told to go home, and I was in charge of the email comms for a national food delivery company. So it was being thrown into the fire a little bit. Lots of good stuff, lots of things we had to do in a matter of hours that we would do in months. That would take months at a time. We had unprecedented demand, so sales were through the roof. We had to close the shop to any new customers, and we had closed it for months and months on end. We had 2 periods where we didn't allow any new customers in, and we had set up a waiting list, and we had 70,000 contacts on that waiting list waiting to get a food delivery. So we completely stripped back the range. We decided that we're going to deliver to as many households as possible. So we had over 400 SKUs on our website, over 400 items. And we went down to literally around 30 items, just boxes, literally fruit and veg boxes, all we could deliver. A few little like milk, eggs and bread. That was pretty much it. To get to as many households as we could. So it was really great for us. We obviously got a huge growth in terms of customer base. We grew really fast, but we knew that wasn't going to be sustainable ultimately. And off the back of that, rewind this time last year a little bit further, energy inflation, huge food inflation, cost of living crisis. It's been a real challenge for a lot of businesses. So we've been through quite a journey, and our senior management, I suppose, have essentially come up with a 5-year plan and said, look, okay, we've started to steady the ship now. We're pretty steady in terms of what we're delivering. We're getting our forecast right. So what can we do? So we've got this 5-year plan. I'm not going to go into all the detail today. I'm just going to focus on one of our sort of business-wide goals and why this is relevant today, talking to you today. So by 2028, we want to be fighting fit. So we want to be outstanding at what we do, doing things well, right down to the fine detail is at the heart of our success. And there's a lot of SMART goals beneath this. One of them, which is relevant today, which is relevant to myself and my team, is provide such a great experience that over 90% of our customers would recommend us to others. That's a real stretch goal, but it's one that we think in 5 years' time we should be aiming for. And that brings me on to part 2, so measuring advocacy. So looking at that 90%, how are we going to measure it? How are we going to get there? Hopefully, I'm pretty sure most of you in the room are going to be familiar with NPS. So I'm going to do a brief whistle-stop tour of it if anyone doesn't know or just wants a reminder. NPS is the classic sort of, actually, hands up, show of hands again, who uses NPS at the moment? Okay, A little less than half. Okay, fine. So yeah, NPS. You asked the classic question: how likely are you to recommend us to family and friends? And there's a scoring system of 0 to 10. You've got 0 to 6, which is your detractors. So they're likely to, if you come up as your brand at a dinner table, they're likely to say not such a great thing about you. 7 or 8, they're your passive customers. So they're okay, but they're not going to say anything good. They're not going to say anything bad really. And then 9 and 10 are your promoters, and they're going to say lots of lovely things about you. And NPS is, of course, taking your percentage of detractors away from your percentage of promoters. So a really respectable high NPS might be 76. That would be something like you've had 82% promoters and you've had 6% detractors. You get 76. Hopefully that's a little reminder of what NPS is. And this is what we've decided to use as well. So before, we had various feedback forms and surveys where we were asking for this, that, and the other, how's your experience, and so on. And it was giving us some insight, but it wasn't as scientific as this, obviously, in that sense. And it wasn't really measuring that advocacy either. It was just a kind of general, how is it going kind of question. So we have gone for the NPS route. And what does that look like in terms of who we're asking? I'd like to start with audience first. I think this is one of the things where we can get lost in comparison in terms of comparing ourselves to each other as brands. You don't really know how someone is measuring their NPS, who they're actually asking. They may be doing, something a little bit on purpose to make their NPS look a little bit better in terms of skewing it, or just unintentionally. But the customer base in which you're asking could differ, how you're asking them, etc. Tesla is a great example of a really high NPS score. You don't know who they're asking and how they're asking. But then if you've ever met someone with a Tesla, they like to bang on about their Teslas, so maybe that's why they've got a really high NPS score. Anyway, this is who we're asking. I just wanted to share this with you to be transparent. We ask a representative sample of customers 4 days after their delivery. So they could have had their first delivery, they could have had their 100th delivery, they could have complained 2 days ago, they could have used the refer a friend scheme 2 days ago. They could be anywhere really in the customer journey aside from obviously having had that delivery 4 days ago. That's where they sit. And we think this is a really fair kind of measure. It's a decent time frame. It's looking at that based on that experience. In terms of that delivery, they've had enough time to experience the produce, experience the website, etc., etc. Okay, so what about the email itself? We think it benefits. We get a lot of benefit in terms of having a little explainer before. I think you'll have a lot of brands, and you would have seen NPS yourselves, where you get an email and it says, would you recommend us? And there's no personalization, and it just says 0 to 10, and you click. That's fine, that's okay. We like to give a bit of context as to why we're actually asking. We are really asking because we really want to know. We want to know how we're doing. So we have that little intro there, and we also mentioned that there's an opportunity to provide feedback on the next page as well. So it just gives that little incentive. And then, of course, we go into the main question. And one thing we wanted to sort of highlight here is that we say, based on your recent experience with Riverford, we have customers who've been with us for like over 20 years. And if we say, if we would just say, how likely are you to recommend a family friend, they could base that on their entire experience in terms of their last 20 years, and they're probably going to say 10 because they absolutely love us, which is great. But we really want to know, we want to drill down on based on your recent experience. That's how we can track this over time, how to see how we're doing differently. So that's an important little one there. And then, of course, it goes into the classic question, how likely are you to recommend us to your family and friends? So it's all pretty straightforward so far. And then a little bit around Mapp in terms of where we're capturing this data. So the link in the email triggers the customer to enter an event-based whiteboard. And based on the link in the assign link category, it will update their custom attribute with their NPS score. So that happens straight away in real time. We can see what they've scored us. So yeah, hopefully that's really quite straightforward. And then this is where we kind of get into the area of, okay, great, we can measure towards our big goal in 5 years' time. We can see how we're doing. We can track that over time. And as a business, we could go, okay, maybe we could improve it by, doing something different with our packaging, or maybe we can improve it by adding this to our range, or such and such. But really, as most of us know, we want to be much more customer-centric than that. So this is the chance, once they've clicked through, is to ask for more information, ask for feedback. So how do we know what we want to improve? Again, I think you would have seen many situations where NPS, you click through and it says, tell us more, and you can type something in and that's great. We have had feedback like that before as well, so little feedback forms like that, but it's so broad, such a broad spectrum of feedback from anything from the website to their delivery, to their delivery drive or experience. It's so hard to define and understand exactly what's going on. So we decided to split this out into our 6 key areas of the customer experience. So 6 questions and 2 parts to each question. We've got a quant section where it's like at scale. How satisfied are you, from very dissatisfied to very satisfied, and we can take an average score of each. And then please let us know why you gave that answer, a little bit more feedback on the area. So that example there on quality of produce. Obviously a key part of our customer experience is the quality that they're getting delivered to their door. And then when the customer submits this on the landing page built in Mapp, we have a little bit of specific code that the dev guys at Mapp have put into the HTML that sends, with an API call, it sends that information to the custom attribute of that customer in real time again. So as soon as they hit that submit button, that information has been sent and has been fed into their contact profile. One thing which was quite a nice little clever thing that we did as well was if they scored us 9 or 10 in the email itself, they go to exactly the same landing page. They all go to the exact same landing page to fill out that feedback. But then if they scored 9 or 10 when they hit submit, they go to a separate landing sort of submit page, and that promotes our refer a friend, because we can kind of see, well, they scored 9 or 10, that's good. They're likely to recommend us. Let's tell them about our refer a friend scheme if they didn't know about that already. So that was quite a nice little thing that we could do as well. And there was just like some parameters set up in the background to send them to that separate submit page. And then finally, obviously this data doesn't all stay in Mapp, so we have used 2 functions again, the export function and the automation together, to export that raw data on a daily basis. And that goes to, as a CSV, to our SFTP, to our data warehouse, and then into our BI report on a daily basis so that we can see exactly how we're doing in terms of NPS and customer satisfaction. What we've also done, we just started doing as well, is to really encourage everyone around the business really to think more like the customer. Is we do something called the customer voice on a monthly basis. So we present to key stakeholders around the business so what the customer is saying about all the different areas and how we can improve. And this is really where we're starting to drive change. We had our first proper monthly one about 3 weeks ago. So yeah, pretty important meeting for us in terms of presenting back to those key stakeholders and saying what they need to change, what is going well and what needs to improve. And it's directly from the customer. It's not something that we've picked out of thin air and thought, this might work. Maybe this is what we should be doing. This is sort of data led in terms of that direct customer feedback that we needed. So, in summary, Mapp has enabled Riverford to have an automated, consistent flow of customer insight that is fundamental in driving change for our business, and it will be, hopefully, for the next 5 years. And one final thing for me is, I'm not in sales, so I'm not going to do a very good job of this. Try us out. We're a highly ethical, fully organic company. We have planet-friendly packaging, so all our fruit and veg packaging is either paper or home compostable where we need packaging at all. We have committed long-term contracts to farmers, so we don't do them over. We grow for flavour, not for how it looks. And organic farming goes beyond purely sort of not using pesticides. It's all about biodiversity, about our soil, our wildlife, our water sources, and everything like that. So if you believe in that sort of thing, please give us a try. You can get £15 off if you use your little cards in your bags as well off your second order. So that is my little pitch, my little sales pitch at the end. Thank you.